We're at the Diamond Head Beach Resort. All council members are present, town manager, town clerk, town attorney. With that, we will call for public comment. Anyone from staff there want to come up and make public comment? There's no one in the audience except for that gentleman back there. All right, we will close public comment. Public hearings, we got first public hearing. We don't have to do any swearing anybody in, right?
No,
Okay, just
No.
making sure.
you just have to read it.
Okay. Item A is resolution 23-116, fiscal year 23-24 ad valorem millage rate. The resolution of the town council of the town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the final ad valorem millage rate for the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida for fiscal year 2023-2024, commencing October 1st, 2023 and ending September 30th, 2024 for the purpose of providing sufficient funds for the general fund and providing an effective date. Is there a motion to approve the fiscal year 23-24 ad valorem millage rate?
So moved.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Councilor Woodson, seconded by Vice Mayor Adderall. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just in case folks were kind enough to tune in online, I just wanted to explain, this is our second budget hearing, and we had extensive budget discussions earlier today at our first meeting at 9 o'clock. So I just, for folks who may be under the impression if they just tuned in that we're not doing our due diligence, there's been extensive opportunity for public comment and debate, and we've certainly utilized that. And this is just kind of the final exercise of the budget process tonight, just in case people wonder why there's not more discussion. Just thought I'd share that for somebody who might have just tuned in.
Good point.
Tuned in.
Any other discussion?
I don't know if this is the right place to do it, but I've had this discussion with Joe and Andy over the weekend. The ad in the newspapers caused some confusion because it talked of a budget a tax increase, even though the millage rate was staying the same. And Joe gave an explanation for that. Would you mind doing that right now?
Yes, we are required by state statute to describe an increase as a tax increase. The situation where the millage rate that we're proposing is greater than what the rollback rate is. And I do have this in my presentation, might be easier to show, but
Okay, thank you.
would you prefer that I do that? Or
That'd
just,
be great, just as long as it gets addressed. I appreciate it.
okay,
Because
yes.
it did cause confusion. I got a few emails and texts about it. Thank you.
Do you want to do that now or on another item when he's going to do the presentation?
I think he said he'd do it
I
during
think
his
he should do it
presentation.
now.
So
Do it now?
do it now.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And this is really basically, it's the same presentation I had before. Since you've been through it before, I won't dwell on anything but other than at the beginning here. So this talks about the budget challenges, the revenue losses, the uncertainty of funding, attracting and retaining personnel, so the additional personnel that we're bringing in, the budget impact of replacing contractors with employees. So that would be saving us the $1 million we pointed out
Just
this morning.
before you roll over that, because I know we did talk about it this morning, but
Oh, sure.
previously
I don't need
you
to go
had
too
you had a
fast.
thing that was like $900 and something thousand with the new personnel, but this is pretty much saying that comes out to be pretty even.
Well, for these personnel, yes, we actually we're be spending $1,050,000, but we're replacing $2,080,000 worth of contractor expense. So we're actually, by spending $1,050,000, we're saving $1 million. I think this is not 30,000.
Now, is this, so you're
Yes.
saying that our total personnel costs are going to go down by $1 million?
Well, for this group, yes,
Okay.
yes,
And are there new employees that have been added that are not in this group?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, if you'd like to go back to that, I think, let me see if I can do that. Yeah, there's actually 31.8 new positions. This only accounts for 13 of them. So the others are actual true additions.
There are additions, but it looks like most of those were permitting, so they come from permit fees.
Yeah, The 16 and a half of them are in the building fund, so they're covered by permit revenue. The one is in stormwater, so that would be covered by stormwater and utilities revenue. And then the rest are in the general fund, but some of these were previously contractor positions, like for example, let's see, yeah, speech management and the community development director had been a contracted position. And I think,
But some of these were transfers from a different department
Yeah.
with a different title now, correct? Like the executive assistant, she was actually in public works or public Parks and Rec.
yes,
before.
that's true, but then that did leave the position that she formerly held vacant. So it
Okay.
is considered a new position
Got it.
for that reason.
Okay, so I guess we're
Okay.
still not really clear of the overall budget impact of our personnel this year compared to last year, taking out ones that are paid by like permitting funds.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part.
Well, I'm still then a little bit unsure about what the budget impacts of our personnel situation now is compared to last year when you take out things that are paid for like permitting funds and things that expect to be kind of self-paid. You know, I know you said with one page where you saved $1 million, with another one we have people, but some of them came from somewhere else.
General fund versus building fund.
Yes, I do understand the question. I just don't have that information in my head to be able to answer it. I wasn't expecting that to be asked tonight. I'm sorry.
I should have done it this morning. I'm in a pretty
I'm very
confident.
sorry.
I mean, I know that like last year or last couple of years, we were like really fine tuning the budget. And then this year it's like, it's wild. So
Right. If I did have that information that was presented like originally at one of the earlier meetings, it did outline the total cost. So if you refer back to that, you should be able to see what the total cost of the new personnel are. And then this, if you look at this slide in comparison to what the total cost had been, you could deduct the savings here to know the true impact. And I'm sorry, I don't have that here. Wasn't expecting that. I should have been.
sorry, Joe. I should
No,
give you more
it's
warning.
I'm the one who should have expected it. So I
But if I may,
apologize.
Mayor, all those positions are not new this year. They were new last year, and it's just carrying into this year, like the Frankie's position, Danielle's position, they were last year's budget. So there's a budget amendment for that. So it's not new to this year.
That's true. All these positions, they are what were added this current year. There's nothing really added for next year. Okay, but the reason why they're shown as new is because what we're doing is comparing it to the budget that was originally approved for 2023, and then all those positions were added afterwards. So compared to last year's original adopted budget, they're new. Okay, so I can just fly through these. I mean, basically the general fund budget is $12 million and the total budget for all funds is $51.5 million. And then now here we go with the millage rate. So we are proposing to keep the millage rate the same for FY24 as it was for FY23, and that's at 0.99%. So we're not proposing any change there. But when you compare it to the rollback rate, and the rollback rate is calculated at 0.8290, and that's the millage rate that's necessary to generate the same amount of tax revenue as was generated the prior year, but using the current year's appraised value before you take into account any additions like new construction or any deletions, which would be the damage caused by Hurricane Ian. So if you don't count the damage caused by the hurricane and if you don't count any new construction, the appraised or taxable value increased enough so that in order to generate the exact same amount of tax revenue on that basis, you would actually have to lower the millage rate to 0.8290%. So that's what the rollback rate is. And so in comparison to the rollback rate, the 0.99% does look like a tax increase. And it does represent, when you compare those two figures, the 0.99 millage rate compared to the 0.8290 millage rate, that comparison is a 19.42% increase, which is what we're required to report in the newspaper for the trim ad.
And if I could just real briefly, because one of our constituents, Chuck Bodenhafer, always used to make this rollback argument. And intellectually, it's a fair argument to make in normal times. But given the bizarro world that we're in, that we've lost 42% of our revenue from Ian, of course, it's not germane to this particular discussion. But in a normal time, this could be a legitimate intellectual exercise to have that discussion, but not post Ian. Yeah.
I would agree with that. And this is just kind of represents what in dollar amounts. So the 0.99% millage rate, even though it's the same as FY23, it represents a 42% reduction in tax revenue compared to what was collected in FY23. So same millage rate, but 42.6% reduction in taxes to the town. Okay, and then these are all the charts, and I could pause on them if you'd like to see them, but if you'd like for me to just advance through them, I can do that. I don't want to minimize anything. We can, okay, so this is just the average taxable assessed value over 5 years. You can see it dropped in 2023. The same thing, the assessed value dropped for 2023 overall average. And then these are the graphs of what percentage the town's share of property tax revenue is. And out of that whole pie chart, that little red slice, that 6% is all that the town of Fort Myers Beach collects out of everyone's property tax bill. And then this just compares how the budget's changed from the top line is the final budget that we're proposing tonight. FY23 is the adopted.
I don't want to belabor this. Could you
Yeah.
go back to the pie chart
Okay.
slide? So could you just repeat, when somebody gets their property tax bill, their annual property tax bill, what percentage of their bill is Fort Myers Beach?
6%.
Thank you. That doesn't diminish our role as good fiscal stewards, but I just think a lot of folks don't realize what a small percentage of their property tax bill actually goes to Fort Myers Beach versus Lee County versus the schools, the fire department, et cetera.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for emphasizing that point. Okay. And then this just shows you the comparison. So even though we have these increases of personnel, et cetera, we actually have a smaller budget for next year. It's $2.1 million smaller for the general fund and $1.5 million smaller in total. And most of that is due to the fact that we're not contributing anything to the capital fund next year. And part of the reason for that is, well, one is we don't have the funds to do that. And secondly, we're required with the bridge loan to not make any capital contributions. Okay, and then this is just expenses by department, which you've seen already. It just itemizes by department where all those differences in the general fund are. And then here, I think some of these pie charts labels were missing the last time around, so I made sure that they're all included. So this is where all the general fund money goes according to the percentage. So I think you can see everything here. This again explains where the revenue is coming from to fund the general fund. So most, or 7.2 million of it is just pure revenue coming in and collected by the town, but we are using almost $3.5 million of the bridge loan. $500,000 is unspent capital funds for the Estero Boulevard lighting that's transferred back. We're using some of our savings from some of the refunds that we've received back from being part of the Benecon Benefit Consortium, and then the rest, $831,000, is ARPA funds. And then this is a pie chart of the entire budget, and I think this might have been one of the ones where it was missing labels. This is the revenue side. Where does the money come from? You could see really that the taxes are only 20% of the entire pie. And then this isn't a breakdown by fund of how the budget changed. And then this is another pie chart of how the money is spent. And here again, I think all the labels are there. I think that services slice, that gray slice, was the one that was missing the label, and that was 11%. Okay, and this is where the money comes from again for the entire budget. Okay, debt service, it's, nothing has changed here other, for the $10 million capital improvement loan, we've got $6.7 million left. This is what we're going to be using to do, we're extending it through next May to draw down. This would be for the Bayside Park, anything in Times Square that may be happening between now and then, or for Bay Oaks. So we have this to draw from between now and May. This is the bridge loan, so we're using almost $3.5 million, which would leave $8.4 million left. 10% interest rate that would start up July 1st, unless if we were to extend it, which we'll be doing. We'll be asking for an extension, and I believe we can extend it up to a year, possibly longer. And once we're allowed to ask for the extension, we will do so.
Wait, I have a question on that.
Yes.
So Matt Caldwell was
Yes.
saying this is the bridge loan. This
bridge
is
loan.
not the state loan. State bridge loan. Okay,
Yes.
so Matt Caldwell encouraged us this morning to ask for forgiveness of
Yes.
that loan.
Yes.
So how does that work?
Well,
How do we go about that?
We are certainly going to ask for that. We were
I
thankful
assume
that,
so, but-
that Matt said that as well, but we were
Yes.
certainly going to ask. For that.
Yes, and I believe, there's two routes. One would be just the ability to pay. So we would have to demonstrate that we don't have the ability to pay this back based on our current
We can
revenue
do
streams.
that.
Yeah, so that's pretty simple. And I think that would be the basis of the extension, at least to start with. And then otherwise, I guess it would be a legislative process to go to our representatives and to see what they can do through lobbyists and with the state appropriations to change it from a loan to a grant. But I don't know
No, I
the
think that's
details.
exactly right, because he did mention the Lee County delegation working with them.
Right,
Yes.
yeah, because they're putting a process in place, I believe,
Hmm.
to ask for that forgiveness and turn it into a grant. So
Well, if there is any part I need to
Frankie's
play in
like
it,
all
I'm
over it. He's
happy to
shaking
do
his head,
that.
I can see. Okay.
It's a process.
Okay. And then we have, this is the same chart I showed you this morning, except I pulled out the yellow highlighting. So this is the Florida State Revolving Fund for this drinking water and stormwater loans. It's just showing you, if you look at the very last column, the total. So we're approved for loans up to 61.6 million. We've already drawn 42 million. So we have almost $20 million left we can draw on. And then if you look a little further down there, we've already repaid $3.2 million because some of these payments started in 2019. So we've already made progress in paying back some of the loan. So what we have left to repay in total is the 38 million. And our annual payments starting 2025, I believe, would be almost $3 million a year. And Steve had already reassured us that there's enough built into the rates that have already been established that we should be able to cover the loan repayments.
But before you go on from this, a question I didn't get to ask you, Steve, earlier. With the amount of funding that's available to draw down on, is that going to be enough with the grants and everything that we talked about earlier to fulfill the original design when it was done to borrow this money in the first place? You have to come up.
We can't get you comfortable back there.
Steven Tuska, Utilities Manager for the record. I have Angie Brewer here. They're the ones that procured the SRF loans for us, so they're going to go over it for you guys. We have the ability to ask for extensions. We have the ability to increase the dollar amount of the original design of the loans. I'm hoping that we can get grants and assistance for the additional now that we had damages from Ian and we're redesigning some of our stormwater system. So
Is that a polite way of saying that's probably not going to be enough to cover what we originally had planned on?
the first tier one project that we have right now is $23 million. So, I mean, the county's paying their portion. This loan pretty much covers the remainder of the tier one portion and nothing additional. But a lot of the other projects are already funded with some of the grants that we're working on. So I do believe at this time that we will have enough in this loan without asking for an increase. That's my intentions.
To complete the entire stormwater project.
Yes, sir.
You look like you're ready to say something.
I'll let
Well,
him-
before you introduce, could you introduce him, Steve, and tell us who he is and what he does for the town contractually?
This is Mark from Angie Brewer. He's one of our consultants that helps us out with our state loan and our state revolving funds.
Is he different from the person who's going to be doing the firm that's going to be doing the cost of service study, et cetera?
Yes, that is a different company.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, my name is Mark Brewer with Angie Brewer and Associates, and we've been helping the town since about 2017 to manage your SRF loans and some grant funding. At this point, our estimate, including it's not currently approved, but what's pending to be approved for the construction contract, there's about $2.7 million that needs to either be covered by additional loan funds or additional grants. And so at this point, we've helped the town to acquire $2.3 million of the original costs, including the budget right now, but there is still an amount of $2.7 million. We've already talked to DEP for the SRF loans about increasing that. We actually, a couple days after Ian, when we got a hold of the folks at the state, started the process of the deferment of all payments for 2 fiscal years to allow everybody to evaluate what happened. Fortunately, they were happy to do that. It took a little bit of time because that was not something that was statutorily allowed. So we had to go through a process of getting the policy changed. But within a few months, they were able to physically provide a loan amendment to do that. They are open to continuing to push that out a little bit further, understanding that these things don't get fixed overnight. 2 fiscal cycles was really enough to make sure, enough to make sure we would be able to have a better feel for where the town was going to be at, and not to put you in a position where the SRF alone was going to put you in a bad spot as far as your revenue generation and the expected income that was to pay back these loans. And so we do fully expect that to be able to be extended again. The good news is that most of your loans are in the 0% to 0.9% range of the ones that are not in repayment. And so it's not also adding a bunch, 10% or something like that. You're not compounding the issue by pushing that out. It's not really costing the cost of the financing is not going to be growing dramatically while you sort that out. But yes, at this point, the bids came in around $23 million, and we have all but about 2.7 of that. That includes not just the construction, but other costs that are related to the project. So all in all, we would be looking to help you guys identify somewhere around $2.5 to $3 million, because we never know what the costs are going to do once you get into construction, change orders, things like that. So the target is around $3 million in grants, but also having the backup in the SRF loan to fully fund the project in the event that those dollars don't come in from the grants. The good news is, based on the amount of time that you're going to be implementing the current project that is up for approval, it's about a 4-year process, which means we get 4 bites at the apple each year to go through the legislative process. There's also Protecting Florida Together grants and some other opportunities that we are staying constant on top of to see what could actually be brought to bear to bring that down. And the idea is not just to look for 3, that's the minimum, because the way the SRF loan program works is it's not like a bond where you get all the money and start paying interest on it. Anything you don't draw, you don't pay back. And so that will give us additional cycles for multiple grant programs. And I can tell you, in talking to the different folks and the staff at the state, if there's a possibility to help Fort Myers Beach, they are inclined to do so. We had a couple folks come down just a few weeks ago on one of the grant programs that's just getting started that will be funding this project as well. And they were devastated. And, I think you don't really realize how bad it it was until you're on the ground. And it's even a program, they almost never leave Tallahassee. I was actually surprised that they came down for a visit, but I think it made a big difference. And they are folks that review grant applications. So it's a great opportunity to get an eyes on, feet on the ground, real feel for there's got to be a way to help you guys to overcome some of the financial challenges. You know, we can't do everything, but in the realm that we're in, we obviously want to make sure that everybody in Tallahassee knows if there's a place that has a need to get their systems back in place without any additional financial impact, this is the place to be. So, and I can answer any questions that you have. When we picked up this project, it started in about 2013. It took a little bit of time to dig in and get everything caught up. And like I said, we've been working here since 2017, and we hope to continue helping well into the future.
So could I ask, so your formal role is to help with the state revolving loan fund, make basically our liaison, but you also have the capacity to apply for all these various grants and so forth?
Yes, in fact, we have applied for and received or participated. Obviously, we're not legislators and we're not lobbyists, but we do prepare applications and we work with the town to make sure that you're looking ahead for any grant opportunities. And so there have been a couple of legislative process grants, hazard mitigation program grants, and we always keep a lookout. So yes, I can tell you like the 30-second version of our history, if that's helpful.
But I guess I'm curious, the $10 million that the town recently received, were you part of that exercise?
No, sir.
Now, why would you not be part of that? How is that different?
So you guys went out for a very specialized RFP that we did not have folks like inspectors, certain inspectors that were listed in there. And so you actually have a disaster recovery firm, I believe it's Tidal Basin, and that ended up under their purview.
So you did, I guess so just procedurally, I knew they were obviously heavily involved, but that's not an area that you partnered with, but you might have situations where you could partner with them as well. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then in part of your role, do you do analysis of our revenue stream? In other words, do you look at our cost of service study and what kind of revenue our new rate increases brought in? Is that part of your analysis, or are you more seeking out state revolving loan funds and grants, et cetera? In other words, do you do the sort of actuarial cost of service analysis to know whether we're going to need more money or whether we have enough coming in, or I'm just trying to understand your world.
Sure. I would say we participated in the most recent utilities rate study, not as a whole town, but when the rate study was done just a couple of years ago, we helped with providing information about opportunities for grants and the SRF program and the capital projects that were on tap at that time. And so that they would get properly represented in the need for your cost of service, for your rate setting. But we were not contracted to do the rate study, but we did participate in providing information and evaluating that and analyzing it to make sure that everything that we were aware of was captured in that process.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Mr. Brewer? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
I did have an opportunity to look at the total cost of new personnel, so I can answer that question if you like. For next year's budget, the total cost of all 31.8 positions would increase the budget by $2.5 million, but then you would subtract from that the savings of the $1,060,000. So that would bring it down to roughly 2.4 or $1.4 million in total net cost increase for the new employees. Okay, and otherwise, I think
Just so we don't leave our public hanging, Joe, many of those new employees were involved in ramping up our permitting division. Is that a fair characterization?
yes, I would say more than half.
Okay, thank you.
More than half. Okay, so that really is the last slide I have from here. And when we get to the resolution regarding the budget, I just would like to ask that it be amended, but when we get there, we can talk
Okay.
about that.
Any other questions for Joe regarding the ad valorem millage rate? Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any other discussion? Roll call vote. Who made the motion? I don't remember.
I think I did. I did.
Okay. Okay. So roll call vote. Counselor Woodson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Aye.
Counselor King,
Aye.
Counselor Beach,
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Motion carries unanimously. That That brings us to item B, Resolution 23-117, final fiscal year 23-24 budget. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the final budget for fiscal year 2023-2024, commencing October 1st, 2023, and ending on September 30th, 2024, and providing for an effective date. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, I had included an attachment to the resolution, which was basically a summary of the budget. And what I noticed yesterday on page 20, it had some cell reference errors from the spreadsheet, which, is that # REF, which is a complete, it's a typographical error. So what I'm asking is that you replace the Exhibit A that's currently attached to the resolution, which the one that I had emailed out to all of you, and the only change that I made, there's no dollar amounts that changed. It was just to correct that typographical error.
I think we can handle that.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 23-117, final fiscal year 23-24 budget as amended?
So moved.
Let's see, we've got a motion.
Second.
We've got a motion from Counselor Woodson, seconded by Counselor Veach. Any discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Counselor Veach,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Aye.
Counselor King,
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Item C is Resolution 23-115, final fiscal year 23-24 fee schedule. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the final fee schedule for fiscal year 2023-2024, commencing October 1st, 2023, and ending on September 30th, 2024, and providing for an effective date. Joe?
Okay, so I do have my presentation here. It's the same information I presented earlier, which is the few corrections that were made. So basically, it's presenting to you the financial impact of the fee changes that have been suggested and incorporated. So the only thing different on this slide is that instead of beach access weddings, we're now calling it beach access rental. For a group of 11 more is a flat fee of $350, or for a group of 10 or less, it's a flat fee of $150. It's unknown what the number will be, so I didn't want to speculate, so I just left that as a question mark. But the other fees, based on past history, that would bring in an additional almost $23,000, and that's for the compliance agreement fee, the lien search fee, and the special magistrate fee. So that's left as it was suggested. These are the other fees that were reduced. The personal watercraft license, parasailing license, beach furniture license. So they're being reduced from the $685 to the $375 each for personal watercraft parasailing, and then down to $120 for beach furniture. So that brings a reduction of $21,710. So really, the net impact of all these changes is basically $1,000. So it made proper adjustments to the individual fees without affecting the overall budget.
And those fees, those fees will increase 3%
Yes.
per year, every year
Yes.
going forward. Okay.
Yes, and then that is noted on the fee schedule as well.
Okay.
Okay, and then these were just some clarifications of fees. So this has to do with the street performers permit and the background check. So rather than charging separate fees for the permit and the background check, it's just combined into one fee. So there's no change in revenue there. This is, again,
So
this,
Joe,
yes.
sorry,
uh-huh,
I just have a question on the background checks.
yes,
So I'm assuming that the street performers renew every year. And so when they do that, there's a background check every year?
that's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, and then this is just a reiteration of what I showed you earlier today of the short-term rental fee and how it, most of it for the projected revenue of next year, it will be covering the cost of the program, and a small amount would be for workforce housing, or anything above that that's collected next year would go to workforce housing. Okay, and then this is just a verbal description of workforce housing and short-term rental program. Okay, so we do need to amend this resolution as well. And it's a similar thing where I would ask that you amend to replace Exhibit A, because currently right now, the version of the fee schedule that's attached to the resolution is the one that still has the beach access wedding permit in there. So this amended version is removing that and replacing it with beach access rental. So it's just really a change of the wording. And that's the only change I made to the fee schedule. So if you could replace what's attached with this revised version, then we'll be perfect.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve resolution 23-115 final fiscal year 23-24 fee schedule as amended?
So moved.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Counselor Woodson, seconded by Counselor Veach. Any other discussion? Roll call vote. Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Counselor Veach,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Aye.
Counselor King,
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Final public comment. Anyone have any comments, suggestions?
You sure yourself like another 5.5 hours to kill?
Seeing no public comment, we will close final public comment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I will second. We've got a motion from Counselor King.